The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Do you want to save around 40% off Disney's prices for deluxe on-property accommodations? Contact DVC-rental.com. They help out Disney Vacation Club owners rent out points that they're not going to use. These points mean savings for you on your next trip at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Vero Beach, Florida, and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. The DVC member books everything in your name, just like any other reservation. And if you ever decide that you want to become a DVC member, you can check out our sister company, BuyAndSellDVC.com. As a licensed realtor, they sell DVC contracts for members at a savings of 30 to 40% off Disney's prices. And if you're looking to sell your contract, BuyAndSellDVC.com has one of the industry's lowest commissions at only 6.5%. Again, that's DVC-rental.com for your rental needs and BuyAndSellDVC.com to buy or sell into the Disney Vacation Club at a large discount. And make sure you tell them that the Behind Ears podcast crew sent you.
Attention wizards and witches. The Expedition Roasters head roastmaster is pleased to announce the release of 4 new wizarding brews. Are you charming and courageous? Book-smart and brilliant? Big-hearted and kind? Or possibly cunning and ambitious? You may have to try all 4 to find out which house roast you belong to. So cast a transporting spell over to Expeditionroasters.com to begin your journey. And don't forget to continue your adventure with our large selection of pop culture-inspired themed coffees. There's always an adventure in every bag. Behind the Ears podcast fans, be sure to use the code EARS20 for 20% off your first order. That's EARS20 at Expeditionroasters.com. Brew, your happy place.
You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast because everybody does Disney differently. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Behind Ears podcast. I'm your host tonight, Mr. Chris. Uncle Danny is still on his holiday schedule. I only had a little bit of time to talk to him briefly, and boy, does he sound like he is completely swamped with work, making sure that everybody gets their deliveries. I'll tell you right now, he is one of the hardest working people I know, and so by all means, he is going to consider coming back to the show a break, to be honest with you. Really admire the guy. Miss him dearly. And as I said, really haven't had too much of a chance to talk to him. I miss my co-host. But that's okay, because we're going to be talking some really awesome Disney news and interesting things. I expect today that we're also going to have some phone calls from our listening audience right now, mainly because I want to hear what you have to say, not only with your own questions, but in regards to some of the news items that seem to be coming out. The past couple of weeks have seemed to have a lot of Disney news. So why don't we go ahead and just get right down to it, eh? And for those of you who are watching in our live stream, I may not be able to see some of your comments right away because I'm going to be reading some of the news. How's that? So I'll see that here just in a moment. All right, so here's the first thing I wanted to go ahead and cover. And this is one of those cases where I think this is one of those changes that we knew was coming. We knew was happening. We sing from out of town. probably think one thing, and I think those who read our news from different places. Basically, I took a look at this from chipandco.com, and this is the interesting part. There are some interesting parking restrictions about to be set in place around Walt Disney World that you should keep an eye out for, it says. The only way you'll be able to park at these resorts are if you're a hotel guest or confirmed with a dining reservation. And gosh, I don't know how to say this. I'm sure if Danny was here, he probably would not really care for this particular item. I know that he has kind of done some things with parking at some of the resorts and so on and so forth. And I totally get it. But it's one of those cases where I think in conjunction with some of the parking fees that have been put into place, as well as the very well-known trick of basically parking at some of the resorts or saying that you have an ADR at a resort. You know, a lot of people do go park at some of those places. Now, I got to be really honest. One time I stayed at Bay Lake Tower. I had such a hard time finding a parking space at my own resort. It got a little frustrating. It really did. And there's actually quite a bit of parking at Bay Lake Tower as well as for the rest for the Contemporary. But to be honest, I don't think there's enough parking there to begin with. So to see a change where they're going to restrict this to those who have ADRs as well as those whom are actual guests, I think is a very welcome change in my opinion. I think it's one of those cases where it's going to make it easier for those who, well, let's face it, if you're staying at those resorts, you're paying for those parking spots. You need to have a parking spot. You shouldn't be fighting over it with someone else who isn't really there. And, even Ashley goes ahead and agrees with me, saying, yeah, it gets crowded at Bay Lake. Yeah, it sure does. By the way, I'm sure like Chris, he's an Uber driver. He's one of our friends down there and he drives for Uber down there. I'm sure this is going to probably be good for him and his fellow drivers because quite honestly, I think this makes it a little bit more desirable for rideshare programs because sometimes you just want to go to the boardwalk and walk around, and enjoy some of the things that are around there or the beach club and just, you don't really have an ADR. You're just kind of winging it. Okay. And I think this is going to be one of the only ways to really do it efficiently, unless you're going from a park to a resort, which obviously take a bus or whatever. Getting from resort to resort is still, one of the tricky things in life there at Disney. So you kind of have to realize, hey, you're either going to do a rideshare, Uber, Lyft, minivan. You're going to have an ADR in park, or you're going to have to rely on Disney transportation. That's really what it's going to come down to. And I'm not really sure that, people are going to like it. A lot of locals, what people don't realize, a lot of locals use Disney as a part of their natural daily life. They like to go to the restaurants. They like to go to the shops. But as we know from a lot of the conversations Danny and I have, not all the really good restaurants at Disney are table service. Sometimes you just want to get, a burger over at, Cape May Cafe and, you don't necessarily have an ADR for it. Or maybe just get some ice cream there and just walk around the boardwalk. But I think there's a lot of people that are going to have to, kind of get used to this little change because I just think that this is one of those cases where we're going to have to get used to it. It's yet another change. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put something up on the screen. Let's go ahead and talk about this for a minute. I want to hear if you guys have any opinions about this. So there's the phone number you can call me at. What's your opinion on this particular topic? Or alternatively, do you have a question for me as well? We have other things to talk about, but I'd love to hear what you happen to have to say about this. It's just one of those cases. And, Chris even said, nope, I'm not all for that. He's one of those that's a local that really does not care for that type of change to happen. He basically says, I always park at the Contemporary when I go to the Magic Kingdom. He refuses to do the monorail. It's one of those things. And Justin even says, or even to go to the ESPN and catch a game. So there's a lot of different things to take into consideration for those whom are local, because they do consider Disney to be a part of their life. So if you have something to say about that particular topic in regards to the parking, as either a guest of the resorts or as a local, I would love to hear from you. The number is on the screen. I'm just going to let it scroll there for a minute, and I will probably end up going to the next topic. So yeah, that's the one thing. And I guess I don't have a problem with it. I guess I really don't have a problem with it. So going on to the next one, and this isn't really more of a news topic, but this is kind of reported to somebody that was supposedly happened last week. And I have no way to verify this, I'll be honest with you. But basically, something made a change where basically only those who have whose name and photo ID match luggage can actually pick up luggage from Bell Services now. Now, again, I haven't confirmed this. Put this under rumor and speculation, right? But you know what this means? For those of you who do different things like free cycling, you know, the art of leaving leftovers with Bell Services for others to pick up. Yeah, so that may become a little bit more difficult to do, because especially if they have to check a first and last name, that type of thing kind of gets kind of crazy. I don't know if that's really a good thing or a bad thing. Tell you the truth, I haven't done the whole free cycle thing. I may try that sometime in the near future, because it actually is a great way to pass along unopened goods that others can enjoy without having to pay for it. It's kind of a pay it forward program, so to speak. But this one's kind of interesting. I would love to know if anybody is down there that would be able to confirm that sort of thing, that whether or not your ID and your luggage tag, the luggage tag that Disney gives you, that mind you, actually has to match. Be really interested to hear what people would have to say about that as well. At the same time, do you do free cycling? I haven't done it. I'd love to know what people have to say. I'm going to go ahead and chime in here while waiting for a call. Albert basically says, I don't think this is a good idea. And he's referring to the parking change. I sometimes wanted to go to the restaurants without a reservation because I can't get one, and also not be able to park. Yeah, you know, I totally get it. Totally get it, Albert. It's one of those things where, you know, it's one of those things that people just don't really want to have to deal with. I totally get it, especially like yourself, you know, a local. So Elaine basically says, when driving to Walt Disney World, I get to my hotel and park for the week and rely on Disney transportation. For me, I don't want to drive around Disney. I totally get it. You know, sometimes a lot of people don't want to, have to deal with it. And so I do the same thing, Elaine. You know, I get down there, I park the truck, I leave it there. Probably the only time I actually use it to go anywhere is to go to like Cast Connections or something like that. So going back, Paul actually asked a really good question. Changing topics here a little bit. He asks, what's free cycling? He's never heard of it. Free cycling is the art of passing along unused items that are still good to other guests. Basically, like, for example, let's say this is very commonplace with DVC members who tend to buy groceries and tend to buy a little bit too much. For example, you buy a case of water, and let's say that you have 6 or 7 bottles left. You can't necessarily take it on the plane with you. You want to leave it for somebody else. Basically, there are actually some boards out there that will help coordinate unused items with those that would desire to pick them up. And usually what you do is that you, usually you go ahead and leave it with Bell Services. And you leave a person's name with Bell Services. And then you can go ahead and, you know, leave with that stuff behind. And then basically the other person would come and pick it up. and they would enjoy those particular items that you left behind. The funny part about this is, and this is a little bit of Disney trivia that is you'll never find in a trivia book, but there was a time when a lot of the resorts did not have refrigerators, especially the values and moderates. And the interesting part is that there were groups that would actually chip in $10 a piece, 10 different families, and they would buy a refrigerator. And what they would do is that they would coordinate it in such a way where one person would buy the refrigerator, use it for a week, leave it at Bell Services for the next person. They get there, they pick it up, they use it for a week. When they're done with it, they go to Bell Services, drop it off. Another person picks it up, so on and so on and so on. They spent $10 for a week worth of refrigerator when Disney would charge $10 a day or something like that. And they would have a refrigerator. Kind of a very neat and unique way of, appliance sharing, if you think about it. It's really kind of neat. Mary says she's passed items on through Bell Services. So I think that's really kind of cool. And Elaine also mentions there are so many posts on free cycling. Quote, checking out of blank blank resort and have blank 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 items and leave them where the ice machines are on blank floor. And unfortunately, when you do that, you also risk of having it taken by mousekeeping. But sometimes you just have to do it. And Ashley also says there are Facebook groups that will do different resorts for recycling things. It's really kind of cool. So, and Carol also mentioned something that I think makes a good point, going back to the whole parking thing. She says this is the time of year where you want to look at the resort decorations and gingerbread houses. And, she doesn't feel like you should have to pay for parking. They used to give you a time limit. I totally agree with that. And you know what the problem of it is? Abuse. It's as simple as that. How many people, both resort guests as well as not resort guests, would actually go to a resort? They would say that they're going to be there for dining, and they leave their car there all day. Some people say it's a victimless crime. Obviously, Disney was getting tired of that. They're doing that now, so they're restricting it. I'm really sorry to say that. I know a lot of people that are doing it, and it's a lot of times when things like that happen is when you have restriction like this comes into play. Let's see. Steven says, I always stay at the Fort Wilderness and use my motorcycle for on-property transportation much quicker than buses. Boy, that would be kind of cool. I could see that. I could see where that could be a very convenient way of dealing with things. Ashley mentions that she utilizes Disney's transportation. Anyway, last week she rode on the buses and the monorail. And, Chris also comments that they've been changing since they charge for overnight parking. It's one of those cases where we kind of knew that they were going to end up changing these kinds of things. We kind of thought about it. We kind of talked about it. Danny and I have talked about it, and he and I do have different ways of looking at it. And both he and I have some, I'll say, good reasons for the ways that we think about things. A lot of times he doesn't like to use Disney transportation. I pretty much thrive on it, and I'm cool with that. And I'm cool with the fact that, he and I have differences in that. It's just the way that people do Disney. So it's one of those cases where if they had bigger parking lots or this, that, and the other, it might be a little bit easier to deal with. The problem of it is the monorail resorts, I think, get abused the most, especially like the Poly. And it's one of those cases. Chris admits he abuses it, but usually it's only from 4 till 10 p.m. And it's only because of issues I've documented on the Walt Disney World page in the past. And only do I do that when he goes to the Magic Kingdom. All the parks, he parks in the parking lot. If you think about it, the Magic Kingdom does have the most convoluted parking situation, right? Because if you want to play by the rules, you have to park at a remote parking lot, basically, then take a tram, and then take watercraft or take a monorail. So you're talking a possibility of 20 minutes to a half an hour just to get from a parking lot to the front gate. I can understand that's a little frustrating. It's one of those cases. Let's see. Christina asks, Is part of the issue that they're running out of room for hotel guests to park because non-guests are taking up the spaces? I'm going to speculate yes, to a certain extent. But, really, Disney has always had this rule that you're not supposed to park at the resorts if you're not staying there, or if you're not, staying there for like dinner and stuff like that, or having, utilizing an ADR. It's always been kind of a rule, and they've always had the right to refuse entry. They've always had the right to tow vehicles that don't belong there. And I've even heard of stories of people having their cars towed because they were not parking where they really should. It's really been kind of crazy. So my speculation, Christina, is that yes, that is probably a contributing factor of what's going on. So, now this is where, and I'm not saying this towards Brenda, but Brenda's comment here makes me say, Disney, please help get things straight, because when you do something like this, it causes mixed signals. I can't talk tonight. I'm sorry. Brenda mentions, funny thing, we went to Cape May for breakfast. I asked how long we can park there, and the gentleman at the gate said, leave it here all day. That's not supposed to happen if you think about it. Brenda, I'm glad that happened to you. I think you were given a little bit of pixie dust. I wouldn't expect that next time, especially with these new rules coming into play. The thing is that, just like what I mentioned with Christina, usually you're given a 3-hour limit if you were there for a meal, which is really, with the exception of probably Cali Grill and some of the other really high-end restaurants at around the monorail, etc., it's probably more than enough time. The problem of it is that, people have been leaving their cars all day. I'm really surprised that they let you do that at the boardwalk. Because, the boardwalk has, the worst parking situation, period. It's got limited parking, and, a lot of times I've had to park over an overflow. And I have not liked that one bit. Chris comments that it's been over an hour on Saturday nights, referring to the trek from basically the parking lot via the tram, via the monorail, or the watercraft. So it is this one of those things. Justin actually makes a really interesting comment. He says, I'm surprised that they have not done parking garage at each of the resorts. The problem of it is that I think once you do a parking garage, you take away certain pieces of aesthetics. Because if you think about Disney's show, everything the guest sees, that is, if you would have a 2 or 3 tiered, level parking lot, you actually get kind of, noticeable very quickly. And while obviously I think it's inevitable, the fact of the matter is that at most resorts, values, moderates, and even some of the deluxes, not all, usually you have enough parking where it's not a problem. It's a lot. It's basically, if you think about it, the main ones that they have a problem with is going to be the monorail resorts and the Epcot resorts. Those are the ones that tend to get abused the most. So that's my 2 cents. I love this. Albert says, I wish Disney had a moving walkway from the TTC to the Magic Kingdom. That would be kind of cool. That would really be kind of cool. So, and Christine does you one better though, Albert. She says, I wish they had them all over the park. So the interesting thing is, it kind of goes along with what Christina is saying. Last week, Polly wanted to know exactly which restaurant we were going before they let our driver drop us off. I sometimes think that's just ridiculous. I mean, rideshare drivers, they're there. They tell them what they're doing. They have the sticker. They see that you're an Uber driver. They see that you've got a passenger in the back seat. Come on, Uber driver, let the Uber driver through so he can let his ride out. It's just one of those things. So it's one of those. It's one of those things. I wouldn't recommend this, but I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the screen just because I think it's funny. Chris goes, luckily my Uber sign gets me every time Gets me in every time. I don't even have to try to get in with a fake reservation anymore. Moral of the story, get yourself an Uber sign. Ha, lol. So, it is one of those things. And Elaine, by the way, I want to say welcome. First time listener, you. Really glad to have you here. And I just also want to say, hey, if you like it now, just wait until Uncle Danny comes back from his little holiday break due to work. So, Ashley, I agree. I think a parking structure would be an eyesore. Think about the ones the ones at Disney Springs are different, but they're big and they take up a lot of space. They're very well done, but they're big. So it's one of those things. So, I just don't know. I just really don't know. Well, I'll tell you what, before we go, I'm going to throw up the number on the screen. Feel free to give it a call. Love to hear what some of you guys have to say. Any of your questions, comments, either about something new or about something else that you would like to talk about and hear what the community here has to say. Hey, I'll tell you right now, it has been absolutely crazy when it comes to the whole news bit. I will tell you there are a couple other things that I want to go ahead and mention here in a minute. I will pause to see if my phone actually rings. We've got quite a few people watching us live tonight. And just remember, if you are one of our podcast listeners, hey, we'd love to have you join our live shows here Tuesdays and Thursday nights right here at the Behind Ears podcast channel over here on Facebook, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. And we just have a great time. I really love this group here. Chris has thrown out the hashtag locals know best. All right. So anyway, sorry, pause for a quick drink. This is what happens when I'm doing solo shows. Usually I get a chance to actually take a quick break because Danny's talking or something. I get to take a slurp of water here. But hey, this is live, unscripted, unedited. What you see is what you get. All right. Let me go ahead and pull up next item that I actually found to be kind of interesting because they've tried this before. Disney has tried this before. And I'm actually getting this from the Blog Mickey website. It's not a Disney related, or it's not a Disney official site, but they say the new Fort Park Magic Ticket offers deals on park admission in 2019. So this is kind of interesting. Okay. This is kind of interesting. It's like, beginning of mid-January, you can get a Fort Park Magic Ticket to allow you to experience all 4 Walt Disney World theme parks on select dates. Includes one mission to each of the theme parks. And for a total of 4 admissions. It can be used to enter each theme park only once, limit 1 admission per theme park, and 1 park per day. So not a hopper. Okay? Now, here's the thing. People, first off, have always asked the question, hey, can I use 2 entries instead of getting a hopper? No, you can't. This is one of those cases you still can't do that sort of thing. Okay. But it looks like here you can actually get yourself some pretty good, I don't want to say super discounted rates, but I think it's actually a pretty big deal. So like the value, there's like 3 seasons, right? There's the value season, which is now the slow season. Like in this case, is valid for admission from the 18th of January through March 1st. It's $85 per day. So it's a total of $340 plus tax. And that's like the lowest cost. I mean, if you think about it, that's actually not too bad. I mean, if that's $340 per person. It's, one of those cases where if you're going during that very first part, basically it's a 6-week time span. Great. Now there's also, this is what I don't get. Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm reading and skipping around. For the select part, it's $89 per day, $356 plus tax. Valid for admission basically through January 18th through March 4th or March 14th, March 27th through April 9th, April 27th through May 27th, and August 19th through September 30th. So a lot of the busier times, and puts in some holiday times and weekends and stuff like that, all the way up through, like Labor Day and things like that. Kind of interesting. Then there's the summer one. Adds prime summer dates and most flexible option for most days through September 30th. Basically, 18th of January through March 14th, March 27th through April 9th, and then basically April 27th through September 30th. So it's not an all year type of thing, but it's definitely going to give you guys some options. So it's really actually going to be quite good. The tickets have to be used. Like example, the tickets have to be used within 7 days, or like the Magic Value tickets has to be used by March 1st, whichever comes first. So you got to use them. You got to buy them. You got to use them. You can't just sit on them. The Magic Select ticket, basically you have to use them by September 30th, and same thing for the Magic Summer tickets. Again, 7 days of first use. So we're talking about, this would be a good idea for people who are going to be there for 7 days within those time spans. I think it's going to work out. It's going to work out pretty well if it fits your timeline. It's just one of those things. Ashley's like, I'm going to stick with my gold annual pass. Yep, I can see that. Let's see. Chris is saying, hey, he's downgrading this year. He has the platinum pass right now. He's going to the platinum pass and getting an annual pass to the new Margaritaville water park that's opening on 192. Wow, that'd be kind of interesting. Only water parks I've done have been the Disney water parks, and I absolutely love them. So it's just really kind of cool. I could see where that'd be fun. By the way, Elaine, you say that you're sitting in your igloo in Toronto, having a grand old time, listening and reading. That's awesome. Igloo, huh? Yeah, I'm already tired of winter. It's just one of those things. So what do you think about it? I mean, is Disney trying to do this in such a way where they're trying to lower the cost? People have been complaining about how the costs have been higher and higher and higher, right? So we can't necessarily super complain about, a possible offer that is going to lower cost if it fits your dates. And, if you're going to be able to use it within 7 days. It's not a bad deal. Disney, I think, is actually trying these special dates. And if you think about it, even at the summer rate, you're still talking about, a small discount, and, you don't really have to worry about a lot of the different dates as long as it's not during some of the heaviest time. I think it makes sense. I personally think it's really good. Though I will say the 7 day lead time, or the 7 day time window, kind of does limit it for some people that like to do, like, say, an 8 or 9 day vacation, and they do a couple days here, a couple days there at Disney, and they do different things, or enjoy the resorts, or enjoy the water parks, or do other things in Central Florida during around that time. Although if you think about it, to do a 4, park days in 7 days total, that's a nice vacation. That's a really nice vacation. But I would miss the hopper. I really would. I would miss the hopper component to this altogether. That would be my biggest thing. What do you have to say? Think about it. Give me a call. Number there, right there, scrolling past you on your screen. I would love to hear what your 2 cents would be for this. So it would be one of those. It would be one of those things. Christine was like, "Hey, just what they need during spring break." So it's just really kind of. I think it's worth it. I think it would be worth it if I had to do it, because I know let's put it this way: if I have to go during my son's spring break, which doesn't usually correspond with Disney's spring break, if I had to do that, and I've gone down there during spring break, his spring break, I should say. We would be down there for usually 5 or 6 days. We usually do a day outside of the parks. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I just still like the park hopper option. I really do. I like it because I feel like it's a little bit of an insurance policy. That's just my 2 cents. But it's just one of those things. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Go ahead and give me a call there. Number is scrolling past your screen ever so slowly. You know, I'm going to go ahead and say this, and this is kind of a social commentary more than a Disney commentary. I know that a lot of people have said, hey, you know, Disney vacations are getting expensive. And let's face it, there are a lot of things that are getting expensive. As we come to a close for 2018, there are some things that are going to change for me in 2019. You know, I know that it's one of those cases where, you know, my health care is going up, you know, and some other some of my other take home things are going down. I know I'm going to have to pay more for some things. Not very many things are going down in price, and it's kind of the way it is. But, you know, there are a lot of people that always ask, hey, how can you afford to go to Disney? My biggest thing is budgeting. You know, I have a Disney budget. I stick to it. It's not that much of a shock to me anymore. Being a DVC member helps. Renting DVC points from a place like dvc-rental.com does a really big thing to help you out with stuff like that. I just, you know, I kind of sit here as I'm talking to you guys and realize, yeah, there's a lot of things that still kind of hurt cost-wise, and it does bite into it. So when you see a deal like this from Disney, and it kind of fits within your dates, I think it makes sense. I think it would really help. Wendy actually goes ahead and comments here. I think the 4-park option would be perfect for some people. When I go with my brother and his wife, they want 4 days anyway, and this would be perfect for them. I love park hoppers, but I would do Disney differently with them. Okay, I can see that. See, there you go. Mary, on the other hand, she's like, I have to have a hopper. So there you go. And Brenda says, love the hopper. Although when we have little ones, we do not use it. You know, I think, Brenda, you know, the thing I tend to use hoppers for the most, dealing with weather related items or dealing with unexpected crowds due to tour groups or something like that. Sometimes it's just a matter of just changing your mind. So it's just one of those cases. Chris also mentions, I wouldn't want to spend my money anywhere else other than Disney. Not a happier place in the world. And let's face it, the world can use some more happiness these days. I'll go as often as I can. Well said, my friend. Well said. Ashley even says, I love hopping from park to park every day. Plus all the benefits you can get from an annual pass or from being a DVC member. Very true. I also want to say that, you know, being a DVC member, yeah, sure, you get some perks and this, that, and the other. But let's all just have a gentle, friendly reminder. I would never tell anybody or recommend to anybody that becoming a DVC member for perks and discounts is worth it. Just remember, those perks can change at any time. So let's see. Every time anyone in my house gets paid, money automatically goes to the Disney savings account. Yep, I can definitely see that. Christine mentions, it seems like they should have some way to track what days people are going into the parks, especially with people's APs, because it's really stinky to get to the gate at Magic Kingdom and it says at capacity. And that happened your first time at Walt Disney World. You know what? I've been fortunate enough to not be vacationing at Walt Disney World at a time where they've done some of the different phase closures, as they call it. I'm glad, but we're getting to that point right now here at the end of December where those are becoming more and more commonplace. Let me rephrase that, because that's not what I meant. There has not been any closures. I've been seeing pictures. The crowds have been building. The crowds have been building quickly. Okay, so that's just, you know, something I had to take into consideration. By the time Christmas comes around, and that time between Christmas and New Year's, especially New Year's Eve, oh yeah, big time crowds, big time crowds. Only the strong survive, and that's all I gotta say about that. So Albert's like, I enjoy being able to go on short notice and enjoying the parks, even for a few hours, being an annual pass holder, he mentions. And it's just one of those things where, yeah, I think if I lived there, I would probably I'd probably do that a lot myself. I would see myself going there after work just to watch Illuminations. That would be my my go-to relaxation. So go ahead and give me a call if you'd like. There's the number crawling across the screen. I found it kind of funny how everybody's like, yeah, sure, we'll call in. You guys aren't calling in, he says with humor. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I'm really glad that people are providing their comments on that tonight. So now, what would a news program that we have be without talking about food? Oh yeah, food. And I've had a couple people message me different types of articles on this topic, and I think this sounds really good. Check this out. Disney announces new Taste of Magic Kingdom VIP tour to debut in 2019. And this is actually coming from an article over at InsideTheMagic.com. So it's like, it says here, many Disney fans agree one of the best ways to experience a Disney park is through a VIP tour. VIP tours get you exclusive access to Disney experiences, from attractions and entertainment to behind the scenes sneak peeks. And now Disney foodies are finally getting a VIP tour of their own. And I'll tell you right now, after we had a conversation with our friend Brian, who loves to do VIP tours, VIP tours are definitely worth the money. They're worth the splurge. It's one of those cases where, yeah, you got to save up a little bit for it. It's one of those experiences that are really enjoyable. You got to use them wisely, as Brian said. Make sure you go back and listen to that particular show. And I think that you would get a lot out of it. But check this out. I mean, my mouth is kind of like watering just thinking about this. The all-new Taste of the Magic Kingdom VIP tour will give guests a behind the counter look at all the foods and beverages served at the Magic Kingdom. From Dole Whip to turkey legs, everything in between. A 3-hour-long experience will allow you and your tour group to meander through the Magic Kingdom, tasting delectable classic dishes at your own pace. Oh, I think I gained 3 pounds just by thinking of the opportunity. It's one of those cases where this article isn't necessarily going into super big details, but one thing that they're speculating, or hoping I should say, is to be able to do this type of thing at other parks as well. It's one of those cases where, eating around the Magic Kingdom, I can see that. I would actually prefer to eat around Epcot for obvious reasons. It's one of those cases where I would definitely eat around Hollywood Studios in a way, because there are some really good places at studios that I think we kind of not give credit to. But Magic Kingdom, I think the Magic Kingdom has the most. You know what I will say, though? I know this sounds kind of corny. I actually think that it would be cool if they did something like that at Disney Springs. But that would almost be chaotic because of how much selection that you would have to choose from. I mean, there's so many good things over there. I mean, just listen to Danny talk about some of it. Oh my gosh. It's one of those things. So even Albert says, hey, speaking of food, I kind of want to try the Animal Kingdom taste sampler, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Any thoughts? Here's my take on something like that, Albert. I always, anytime anybody says, hey, is it worth it? I always like to ask 2 questions. 1, have you tried it before? 2, do you think it's something that you would like to enjoy? The thing is, you don't know if you're going to like it unless you try it. There are a lot of times where people would say, hey, do you think the dessert party is worth it? I enjoyed going to the dessert party. I don't know if I would do it again, at least not for quite some time. There are some people that say, I love the dessert party, as an example. I'm using the dessert party as an example, but you can use this with the same thought process. And, the fact of the matter is that there are some people that think that something is good, and then someone else will have the same exact experience and not really like it. My take is, does it sound interesting to you? Does it have food that you'd like to eat? Is it within your budget? I'd say give it a try. Give it a try, see what happens. I'd love to hear your specific experience with it. So it's one of those cases. Scott says, hey, it's $100 a person. $100 a person. It kind of depends on what you get for that $100. It doesn't necessarily say exactly what. It'd be something to look into, right? I mean, 3 hours for $100 worth of eating. Don't go on Space Mountain afterwards. And then don't go over to, Hollywood Studios and ride Rock and Roller Coaster, please. But people are looking here. I mean, Ashley's thinking, yeah, I'd do it. Ashley also says the cheeseburger egg rolls at Magic Kingdom are great. And Christine's like, I've heard the same thing. Let's see. Elaine also mentions, I know a few friends who are giving Disney experiences for Christmas this year. Awesome. The current Canadian promotion is $89 for a one-day park pass, no hopper, but a park hopper can be added. $89 for a Disney day is the same cost as a video game. And I'm also assuming that is $89 Canadian. So that's actually, wow. That's actually, I'm just kind of doing some basic, I'll say traditional exchange rate. That's actually a really good deal available for those people up north. That's kind of interesting. So, here's a great example about the dessert party, Albert. Mary's saying the dessert party for the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party was awesome for those of us that got the VIP parade area. Slightly different experience, but it's one of those things. Mary also asks, hey, have you seen the reviews for the new Artist Point character meal? I've only skimmed a few of them, Mary, to tell you the truth. And I haven't really looked at them in depth, mainly because what I read was so way spread out. I really didn't know how to interpret it. Usually you have a lot of people saying, hey, it was really good, really good, really good. You may have a sporadic, it was okay, maybe one or two, bleh. But I got so many different, comments and experiences written out for it. I really don't know what to say, to be honest with you. I'm going to do a little bit more research, and then I'm going to try to see if anybody's actually tried it. So let's see. Christina makes a very good point. How much can you really eat in 3 hours? I don't think I could eat enough to make $99 worth it. See, if there was Danny and me, we'd probably say something like, challenge accepted. But I think you're right. And I don't think I would actually do it if it was in the summertime. I've said this before. I'll say it again. The summertime months changes your appetite. You try to eat like a little bit of a glutton in the summertime, you could be experiencing some very nasty side effects from overindulgence. So it's just one of those things. Christine also read that you could get to try new foods before they hit the parks. I haven't confirmed that. That would actually be a nice little touch. I would say if you're able to try different things and kind of be a little bit of a beta tester for Disney, hey, you don't get to look like this by being a picky eater, and I'd be more than happy to try someone's new concoctions. I'll tell you that right now. So Mary says, there were a few detailed ones. I'm going in January. She'll report back. Awesome, Mary. You just let me know. Wrong one. Christina also says, I'd rather spend the money in after hours or something. So I think, I think that would actually be really cool. I really enjoy talking about food because, I'm a foodie. I love good food. The interesting part to the whole thing is that I think the best way of putting it, when I first started going to Disney, there were so many new things to try. I really did consider Disney dining to be a part of the experience, not just a need, but a real part of the Disney experience itself. And maybe it's because I, really don't have too many things that I like to do from a dining perspective outside of my house anyway. yes, we have our favorites in the area, but we don't travel too far to go out to eat. And going to Disney and trying some different things, different restaurants, both sit down as well as counter service places, you tend to really find things that you like. And I'm the kind of person that I will try to make certain recipes at home. Not just because I think that they're good, but also, let's face it, you eat something, when you eat something, it puts a certain memory in your brain, very much like something that you see, something that you feel, or something that you smell. And being that Disney has so many great things in all those categories, the fact of the matter is, why should taste not be one of those things that you make a memory on and you take it back and you try to create those types of meals? One of my favorite meals that I love to cook is I love to make a great filet mignon with cream cheese, mashed potatoes, and the Canadian cheddar cheese soup from Le Cellier. And I have to say that I will go and I will buy, the unprocessed tenderloin from our local Mega Mart, and I will slice it up, and, I will have that with my family as a special meal for something like, New Year's Day or birthday or just a 4th of July. You have a really nice meal of something like that. And it's one of those cases where it's like, that's a memory of a great meal that we've had at Walt Disney World. And it's something that we talk about and we do. I will tell you this, though. You can get cookbooks. You can get many types of cookbooks. There's a couple of different volumes of Cooking with the Disney Chefs. A lot of the recipes are in there. I will tell you this. If for those of you who love the cheddar cheese soup over at Le Cellier, if you get the recipe, do yourself a favor. Don't try to be experimental with the beer in the soup. Learn from my fail. Molson is not that easy to get around here. Okay, it's just not, and it's usually rather expensive. And I know it's not the good Molson that you can get in Canada. It's U.S. Brew Molson. So one time I tried Stella. I had it at the UK. I really enjoyed it. The soup turned out great. One time I didn't have Stella. I had some Bass. No, that soup was horrible. That was my fault. It was just one of those things. So I would just say, don't do that. Brunette's like, hey, what time is dinner, Chris? Yeah, that would actually be kind of cool. And Mary's like, hey, I cut my own tenderloin too. Have you cooked it whole? I've not tried it myself. I've not been that brave. It's just one of those. It's one of those things. I really don't. I don't try to do things with that expensive type of thing. My brother-in-law made something like that, and it was really, really good. But I'm not that risky. So Ashley says, one thing while we were at Disney World last week, we tried new to us things. While we went to Epcot and the World Showcase, got to go to different countries, and they have hidden gems in each location no one has ever seen before. Yeah, you got to do some exploring. It's one of those things. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put that number up one last time if anybody wants to go ahead and call in. Love to hear your comments, questions, jokes, remarks. What are you doing for the holidays? Anything that you'd like to join as I go ahead and start wrapping up for the evening. So just a couple little programming notes. First off, I want to go ahead and just mention that for Thursday's show, it's going to be probably a little bit more laid back, or I might actually have a special guest with me. I'm still trying to work out some of those details, but I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, next week with Christmas being in the mix, not sure what we're going to do. Probably, well, I know we're not going to do a show, but at the same time, I may pop in over at the WDW community page as well as the Behind the Ears podcast page. It's just one of those things. All right. Well, it's one of those cases where if you're reading the scroll right now, you know what that means. We're going to have a little bit of an after party after our episode right here, and it's going to be a little bit of fun off the record once I hit that stop button. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this window over here. I'm going to press this button, and I'm going to press this button right here. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. Alrighty. So we're come to a close of another fabulous episode of the Behind the Ears Podcast. I'm really appreciative of everybody that joined in today in the conversation in the chat. That is really pretty super duper awesome. I would be amiss if I didn't mention that we would love to have you join us over at the WDW community page over on Facebook. And I'll tell you, we have a lot of great conversations. It is very much drama-free. It is definitely a wonderful place to basically meet up with some extended Ohana. It is absolutely fabulous place. Meet a lot of great people over there. We're growing every day, but we are definitely keeping it real. And we really just want to invite you guys to join us over there at the WDW community page. And by all means, I hope everybody is able to join us for our next show this coming Thursday, 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at the Behind the Ears Podcast Facebook page. All righty. So we got to get going right now, but until we meet again, I hope everybody has an absolutely magical day. Take care.